Good morning, happy Saturday. So, as promised, here I am talking you through my check-in for the week. Now, I am checking in more often than once a week now. We're monitoring me much more closely because we are getting much closer to the show. But every Saturday, I've promised that from now on, going to do a Loom update as we would for all of our clients on their check-in, but give something to you guys so you can see what I'm doing. And Corey's going to be doing exactly the same. We're both on two different journeys, but obviously very similar in their own right. So think that it would be useful, and people have come to me and said, yeah, this would be super helpful, and also quite a nice insight to see what you are doing. So I'm actually now 5 weeks out from my first show. So you can appreciate that changes are happening fairly rapidly, and it's not like in an off season where it's so much the same every day. We are keeping an eye on things and obviously reacting where is necessary. Now, I will walk you through this and just show you where I am at. So first thing is I'm just going to jump into my journey plan now. I've only just started using these sheets, and we use these for all our clients, but to be honest, the way that we've been recording me for the last 2 years hasn't been on here, but thought it probably appropriate to use the same system, especially for you guys to actually visually show you where I'm at, and it does make things a little bit more visual and easy to see. So started this on last week, so I would have been 6 weeks out from my first show, which would have been the Universe, and now we are here at week 5. Now, you can see here I'm on a deload, been feeling pretty battered over the last 3-4 days. This week I've really sort of been driving down, and there's been quite big changes in my physique, and to be honest, we're in a very good spot to be able to pull back a little bit before we sort of catapult me back into prep. So going for 3, 4, up to 5 days worth of deload, more food, no cardio, just seeing how I respond, seeing how my look is, see how I feel, allowing the calories and the variables to be increased so that once we drop back in, we've got some room to play. And when we drop that food back down and drop some cardio back in, we should see a nice response from that, and it should freshen me up for the last few weeks. So that is the goal there. You will see here, there are a few shows planned. Got the regional there, potentially Alicante as well, and then into our wedding, which is super exciting, on the 20th of June. So that's the plan. Some of these shows are a little bit rough, and we will see how I am. And then there is potential show dates later in the season, but not totally fixed, and we'll just see how I get on with those. But just jumping straight into training, I did touch on one of my posts earlier in the week that my training has changed, and this is what it looks like. So I have got 5 sessions a week with 2 rest days at the moment. We have Sunday, which Sunday into Monday, Tuesday, like that's 3 sessions in a row and could be considered a bit much. But this Sunday and Tuesday session is a touch-up session, which is a touch-up on hams and glutes, which is very accessorized. And then there's a quad dominant compound day on Monday. So the volume is adjusted through them to allow for those 3 days worth of training. And I need the additional glute and hamstring work, so that is where my volume mainly sits. My quads are strong when we look at my body as a balance, and that is where I need the volumes in my glutes and my hamstrings. Happy to say that, and that is where we are targeting. So my upper body doesn't really need any more growth, so that is just a maintenance thing, and that is a fairly balanced upper body session of comprising of mostly more delt dominated stuff, but there is a good balance of chest and back in there as well, because it is important, whether you're a bikini girl or wellness or any female competitor, you still need balance throughout your physique, so that is still in there as that. So maybe on another day I'll run you through these sessions, but for now I think we'll just jump on to where my food and things are at. So my training day food at the moment, not over the next few days because I am on a refeed, but this is, without me running through each meal, what my training day food looks like at the moment, and then what my rest day food looks like at the moment. So visually, you can see that if you're interested. My rest day food is around 1,000 calories, and my training day food is at around 1,500, something like that, I think. I don't have the calories and macros on here because it's pretty irrelevant. Like, it doesn't really matter. Each body is individual, and you have to adjust food where it needs adjusting. It's not necessarily relevant to how much you are eating, and everybody's different. However, I am on a bit of a refeed and deload this week, so what we are doing, and the plan is here, there is a breakdown here, because what we have roughly done, and the logic behind over the next few days, is actually doubling my food pretty much. Not exactly, but on my rest day, doubling my carb intake and nearly doubling my fat intake. give me a nice bump in calories on that rest day with absolutely zero cardio and no training at all. Now, that's today. Now, the plan is to do this until Wednesday. Now, we will just see how I get on. I'm going to be checking every day through this refeed process, checking my weight, checking my look and visuals, how I'm feeling, and really making sure that we keep an eye on things so we don't, one, push things too far, but also make sure we push them enough to refresh me. So a normal training day, which will be tomorrow, I'm going to do no cardio again. We would have usually about 1,300 calories, 132 grams of carbs, 30 grams of fats. And what we are going to do is pretty much double that again to be 1,900 calories, 260 grams of carbs. Fats are going to stay roughly about the same on training day. And protein, that is just a natural increase from the increase in carbs because there is protein in our carb sources. So that's not a direct protein increase. So what that looks like, training day is... I still get to have my bacon and egg bagel in the morning, which is amazing. And then you can see what that looks like. So bagel thins and chicken, keeping my greens in consistent throughout. 8 grams of cereal pre and post with some dark chocolate. And then I've just got a shake and 4 ice cakes in the evening. And rest day, very similar to my normal rest day, but just double. So double the amount of food and carbohydrates across the day there. And then an addition of some more fats in there as well. So looking forward to seeing how that goes, and obviously we'll update you how that is and give an update next week on how that went, etc. So my expenditure's sitting usually around 50 minutes a day. Well, it is 50 minutes a day, not usually, it is 50 minutes a day fasted in the morning, and 3 times a week, every other session essentially is I do 12 minutes of HIIT post workout as well, and that's on the less compounding days. So that's on my accessory days and my push day. So that's when I incorporate those, just for an additional bit of expenditure throughout the day, and that's just been over the last week. However, today, tomorrow, the next few days, that's going to be completely pulled out. Step count is only around 10,000 a day, no more than that. Okay, so just jumping in also into supplementation and PEDs. Now, I've touched on this before already and done a separate video around my test use, and that I use 2.4 milligrams a week. Now, that is something that has stayed in consistently now and will stay in consistently. I've got my bloods to be done in 3 weeks' time, so we will reassess and see where I'm at with that. But I take 0.8 meg on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday. Now, in terms of other anabolic use, I touched on my story on my feed last week that small amount of assistance has now been added. Now, I'm currently running 50 milligrams of primobolan for the whole week, and that is split up every single day in microdosing, so you can see what that looks like there. Likely won't go any more than this, and will only be for these final run-up weeks into the show, and then I will be going into a recovery phase. It's important that this is managed. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that at this moment in time because that's not what I'm here to do, but I want to be super transparent and just let people know obviously where I am at. Now, other things taken into account here is the use of metformin. So I take metformin, 500 milligrams a day with my last meal, every meal. Telmisartan, which is an ARB, 40 milligrams a day every single morning. And for consistency, to keep my thyroid consistent through this dieting phase, 25 milligrams of T3 and 100 milligrams of T4 every single day. Currently also running 80 milligrams of Clen. That has been increased over time, so didn't start there. That's been increased by 20 milligrams each, with each incremental increase that we've done, up to 80 milligrams. Quite comfortable on that, to be honest. Like, I don't really feel any effects of it, and I'm my body's comfortable and happy there. Exactly the same with Yohimbine. For someone of my weight, the max peak load or peak dose is 10 milligrams, and I've worked my way up to that as well. So I take those fasted before my cardio in the morning. I'm quite comfortable with those. So I want to be super transparent about that. I think people can be a little bit hide away with these things, but I want to be super transparent. Every single person is different, and just because this is what I'm doing doesn't mean what anyone else should be, what anyone else is doing. This needs to be managed by a coach, managed properly, assessed with how you respond, bloods, etc. And each athlete is different, so I'm not endorsing any of this, but just want to be super transparent with where I'm at. And then onto my check-in. Now, I think just to give a bit of transparency of my we introduced the slight increase in my anabolics from the 5th, the 4th, and what we have seen there is actually my weight has started to increase slightly. Now, this is why it's important to do visuals, because somebody might say, oh, your weight is increasing slightly, so okay, that's not a great sign. You might, you need to deload straight away, or there's a problem, or your food's too high. At this point with the calories that I'm on, I'm not going to be gaining any additional body fat, so it's really not something of a concern, but it is something to know, and you have to take into account all your variables. So things like my change in training, that's going to drive a little bit more fatigue, potentially a little bit more inflammation, something to be aware of. Additional slight bit of more cardio, potentially a little bit more inflammation, but also obviously my androgen use. So you need to obviously account for that and allow for that. And this is why visuals are so important. And I'm going to show you those visuals in a second. Training, etc., has been going really well. You can see my step count there sits around 12,000 a day, fairly consistent. I do 10 to 12,000 easily without any real effort, and that there's no real need for me to push these steps. In terms of time and expenditure, like for a 60 kilo person, you are not going to be driving a lot of expenditure through steps. You can get a lot more done in terms of expenditure and calorie output from keeping your steps regular throughout the day, but just driving elements of your cardio in, adding in bits of HIIT, driving some more direct cardio. You have to do a lot of steps for not a lot of expenditure, which takes a lot of time and is actually quite exhausting. So be clever about your cardio. I see people on prep with like 24,000 steps in their plan, and I think, what a waste of time. It takes a long time to do 24,000 steps, and to be honest, the effect it has on your body is pretty nil. You're better off going in the cardio and doing 12 minutes, going in the gym and doing 12 minutes of HIIT. So you don't need to drive this. So this is where I'm sat with there. And see here, like my soreness is sort of gathered up as we've gone through the week. I'm still training and progressing every session, training progressive overload approach to failure. And my motivation to train has kind of lagged a little bit. Cardio has been performed every single day, but what you can see here is my hunger did start to dip in the week, and even though my calories are low, I wasn't overly hungry and starting to feel pretty rubbish. Now, last week, from a prep perspective, and we preach this all the time to clients about getting enough sleep, but you'll see here that, or while it's consistent and my wake up times are pretty consistent, like in terms of me actually being able to fall asleep, and this isn't necessarily me getting in bed, but this is like my Oura ring data telling me, that's obviously not wrong, that's obviously not right, but my Oura ring data telling me that my sleep isn't kicking in till like 11:30 at night, sometimes 12, and I'm tossing and turning. And partly this could be down to prep, but also down to the fact that last week, me and Corey have been incredibly busy with setting up new things for the business, setting up new clients, a lot of calls and chats, been around to different gyms, and we've had a lot going on, like with us, obviously, with Corey's health and things. Like, it's been quite stressful. So I don't know whether that has potentially taken a bit of a hit, but I'm hoping that over the next week, and what I can show you next week, is that will be improved, and that sleep time will be a lot earlier. So my average sleep is going to go up. My sleep quality is good. When I'm asleep, I'm asleep. I'm not waking up in the night. Nothing's happening. My sleep quality is good. And my energy is pretty good upon wake. Like, I'm feeling pretty decent. I'm still having a period. This last week, I've been on my cycle the last 3 days. Very, very lightly, but I have been on my cycle. So, like, that is absolutely fine. I haven't actually added my blood pressure in here, but I do this every day on check-in. So I'll add this in, and you'll be able to see that next week. And then obviously I just make some comments each day about how I'm feeling. So just jumping on to my photos, just for a bit of transparency of where we're looking. I last did a physique update 10 days ago and on the grid. And this is what you were looking at, I think, a week ago. I think I didn't do it on the grid. I think I actually put it on my story and said this was my growth. But that was last Wednesday's check-in a week ago. Obviously since then, food has remained consistent. We did pull food slightly on this check-in, and I was transparent about that on my grid and just explain what we were doing, and that's where my food's been sitting for the last 10 days. And also with the addition of some androgens, and you can see the difference in the look there. Like, I am leaner, I am harder, potentially look like I've actually grown a little bit, and the differences are there to see. So this is what we are looking at now at 5 weeks out, and the condition is starting to come through. I'd be expecting glute ham tie-in to be shown at this point, which it is, and the definition is starting to show through here. And my midsection, actually, if we turn to these photos, is actually pretty lean now. Like, in a relaxed pose. I've got very tight midsection. I've got a vascular stomach, vascular obliques, and ribs, and you can see the condition coming through there. So I am in a good spot for how many weeks out I am. So we are pretty happy with where we are, and I'm having to tighten up my bikini now, which is interesting. So we can see here, like, ultimately there is a lot more condition coming through. The body fat is down, and you can see a lot more detail here. So we're really happy with where I am for this time, for 5 weeks out, and this is why we're allowing me to have a refresh, have a bit of a step back, and allowing me to come away, have a bit of a deload and a little bit more food. We'll monitor this each day and see how we're getting on. But in terms of where we are sitting for this amount of weeks to go, like, we've got a lot of time. A lot can happen in a short space of time. 5 weeks out, allowing a week for a bit of a, well, I'll call it a peak week, but for a refresh into the show. So I've still got 4 weeks after this of pushing, essentially. So plenty of time. But I hope you found that useful. There's quite a lot of information there. Any questions around what I've put, let me know. Hopefully next week will be a little bit shorter because there won't be the intro and the background to give you. But any questions, let me know. Hope that's insightful, and we will keep up with these every single week for you throughout prep and into the off season, so you can see how we cycle things, how I adapt training, how we adapt rest, how we adapt food, and essentially how we manage things. But yeah, hope everyone has a really good day. Thank you for watching. Any questions, just drop me a DM and I will message you back and we can have a chat.